With each passing project, the intricate science of the multiverse becomes increasingly expanded, giving both the audience as well as the characters within the stories more insight into how exactly the multiverse itself operates, with the fully comprehensive picture finally coming to realization just before Doctor Strange is set to dive headfirst into the neighboring timelines. The established multiversal logic seems to be fairly consistent. As with any franchise this large, however, some inconsistencies are bound to occur, and one prevalent question regarding the multiverse was left in the closing moments of Spider-Man No Way Home, a question that we'll attempt to answer today. So stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we tackle one of the most intriguing problems with multiversal logic left by No Way Home. And as per usual, spoilers for Tom Holland's third solo entry lay ahead. Do not watch if you have not seen No Way Home. We are giving away another Far From Home hot toy, with us giving away 4 already. Just follow the simple rules in the description down below, including liking and subscribing to the channel. Now, let's get into it. The problem in question comes as a result of Electro's appearance in No Way Home, and how it seemingly goes against the explanation of how Doctor Strange's spell works. We are informed that the spell is pulling forward figures of the multiverse who know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, which makes sense for the rest of the villains as we see them come to this realization within their own individual films, and the realization of Spider-Man's true identity. Electro, played by Jamie Foxx, however, not only doesn't come to this realization in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but he only meets Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker in the third act of No Way Home. He exclaims that he's just a kid, and that he thought Peter would actually be black, implying that he knew nothing of Spider-Man's identity before the events of No Way Home. This would debunk the idea that he might have come to learn about Peter's identity in the time between The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and the events of No Way Home. But seeing as he was pulled directly from the final conflict of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, there's no feasible way for this to have happened, as many believe. So then how exactly was he pulled into the multiverse? Surprisingly, one popular explanation has surfaced that seems to make a lot of sense within the confines of the Amazing Spider-Man universe. The theory stems from the specific phrasing that Electro uses while recounting his final battle against Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, as well as a few innocuous key details from No Way Home. At the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Peter takes the final fight to the city's power grid, which is quite notably run by Oscorp, which is now more significant after the events of No Way Home. Dylan states that he was absorbing data and was about to become a being of pure energy. But interestingly enough, he doesn't use the term energy or electricity. He states specifically that he was absorbing data. This implies that in addition to raw energy, he may have actually been absorbing information as well. Computer code and information is nothing more than specific electrical signals, with particular patterns designed to be read by systems, and our very own brains utilize electrical signals to form thoughts, but more on that in a minute. This means that Electro was actively absorbing information from Oscorp's database, or at the very least, he had the ability to do so. While Oscorp does not have Spider-Man's identity on record, we do come to learn that they may have information necessary to deduce his true identity. The interesting aspect of the Amazing Spider-Man franchise is that we come to learn that Richard Parker had a direct hand in engineering the specialized spiders that were responsible for Peter's powers at the behest of Oscorp, and that in order to make the experiment work, he had to use his own DNA. This meant that Peter was one of the only people in his universe that was genetically compatible with the spider, seeing as they shared enough of the same Parker DNA for the spider's ability to transfer over to Peter successfully, hence transforming him into Spider-Man. Therefore, within the depths of Oscorp's systems and spread around multiple different corners of Oscorp's collective data, the information that Spider-Man must have been related to Richard Parker may have existed in some capacity, but nobody ever dug deep enough to put the entire puzzle together and discover Peter's true identity, although cutscenes from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 indicate that Harry Osborn may have been close. Tom Holland's Spider-Man even goes on a miniature tangent about the science of electricity, specifically explaining that the brain needs electricity to function, and the brain runs on the basis of conducting electrical currents. While this might seem like a relatively innocuous character building moment on the surface, it might actually serve to provide a more cohesive explanation for this particular problem, and hint at the true reason Electro was pulled into the MCU. In essence, electricity in our very own brains helps to carry information that we know as knowledge, but fundamentally, our brains are transporting electrical data throughout our systems on the regular, just like a computer does. This would imply that the spell on a scientific level is just reading data throughout the multiverse, searching for the correct electrical patterns that indicate that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and is able to pull forward the organic beings holding this information. As we know in the Marvel Cinematic cinematic universe, science and magic are one and the same, which we learned that the energy is different between universes, which directly explains Electro's color change and design overhaul. It is implied that these are just minor differences, and does not directly debunk this theory as of yet. We know that sorcery is a science, as was confirmed through Doctor Strange's first solo outing, and we actually see Peter take advantage of this in No Way Home. During the conflict between himself and Strange, we see Peter begin to crack the mathematical fundamentals of sorcery in the mirror dimension. Peter was able to use science and math to go as far as to defeating Doctor Strange, as he recognized that the mirror dimension is nothing more than an Archimedean spiral, and the scientific basis of sorcery has been prevalent in more abundant ways than just this in the past of the MCU. This would fit directly into Doctor Strange's internal logic, stating that the spell is simply reading electrical codes, much like Signal search for specific electrical data, and those same electrical codes are embedded into Electro's physical form as a result of Oscorp's data without him ever actually being consciously aware that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. In essence, the information that Peter is Spider-Man is physically rooted in Electro's body, but not in his mind, and when analyzed within the perspective of the spell's original intention, it makes sense why Electro was pulled through the multiverse. The original intention of the spell was to erase the fact that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and for this to happen, the spell had to isolate this knowledge within the minds of everyone on Earth, and potentially erase social media and electronic records, which would entail yet again searching for specific electrical signals. This fact could theoretically be a specific electrical code within the minds of the computers of the MCU, depending on whether or not the spell is also designed to erase electronic evidence, which is as of yet uncertain. Even if the spell doesn't entail wiping electronic records, as we established earlier, the human brain is fully capable of not only passing electrical codes through itself, but does so on a regular basis. Once the spell isolates this pattern, it can proceed with erasing it. Only when the spell was botched, this line of specific electrical energy wasn't erased. It was pulled through the multiverse, and Electro held a unique position of containing this electrical code within his while not being consciously aware of it. This theory seems to make the most logical sense given what was established within the film, and would feasibly serve as a reasonable explanation for this lingering question. But we're interested in hearing your thoughts on the matter. So anyway, my friends, what do you think of this theory? Do you think that this is a reasonable explanation for how Electro was pulled into the multiverse? And if not, then how do you believe he was pulled into the MCU despite not knowing that Peter is Spider-Man? As always, my friends, we would love to hear your feedback in the comments down below. As always, we hope you have a great day, and we also hope to see you in the next video.